To talk about elevulns a little bit, and then sort of a mini update to another video where I think the last video that I did was called A Better Way to Dark Invader. But I discovered something that some people might find minor, but I think it's kind of a big deal. It's a little bit of an oversight by staff, and once I show it, I'm sure some fuck will go report it and fix it. But for now, this is what I'm going to change my Dark Invader strategy to until, again, some fuck goes and reports it. But I wanted to start off by um, just kind of showing basic ideas. So what I have is the water protein pet here. And so what I'm going to do is talk about how elevulns interact with one another in terms of, let's say, same element versus different element. So what we're going to start off with here is multiple turn water elevuln, and then we'll watch the pet go. So we have 4 turns for 136, and then the pet lands. So the pet by itself is like 137% elevuln, and then for 1 turn, and with elevuln 0 turn, it remains. That's why if you're relying on pet and guest damage, doing just letting the pet and guest inflict is better than, say, like using this spell, because I only added um what is it, 9 or 10% to the elevuln here. Like, I'll cast it again. So it's basically taking the 4 turns times the amount that the spell did, and then it's adding in a turn for the pet, and then it's, so we got 169 and it only went up to 179. So I only added 10% more elevuln with the pet here. All right. Now, when you're dealing with different elevulns, so let's show another demonstration here. So, like, let's use Omni elevuln in this case. So we have 4 turns for 125%. So now we have the water elevuln, again, is 137%. So what happens in this case with the Omni is it multiplies the 137%. And so when you have multiple elevulns there, that's what the Omni will do. So that basically changes the water damage to the same as if it was 171.25% elevuln. Okay, so that's why Omni elevuln is so overpowered. By itself, it's not too bad, but if you're using it with other elevulns, the multiplicative effect starts to skyrocket your damage. And then we also have the well-known, using Power Gauntlet, the well-known bug. Woolzard does the same thing. People know this, so I just want to show this. So we have 145%, and then when we come back with Gauntlet, it raised it to 179. Now, if you were to use the Power Gauntlet at 125 and then do the 140, do the spell, that would actually be equivalent to 181.25, so almost the same. So the amount of turns that you're doing kind of depends. It really just kind of depends on how you're going about this. So what the best time to use Power Gauntlet is when there's with 1 turn. So I'm gonna show that real quick. I'm gonna get this elevuln down to 1 turn. And typically with 1 turn left, Here, I'll show it with 2 turns. So we're going to go with 179 here, and then it went up to 229. So we added what is that, 40 points? So we have that there. Oh, that's 50 points. So now we're down to 1 turn. So now's the best time to use it, and they'll actually add 100. So 229 should be roughly 329. There's a little bit of rounding. It could be 28, could be 30, but we'll see what happens. So 329. So that is the best time to use it. So you're basically adding 100% on top. And again, Woolsard Pet actually bugs this out. I'll bring him on. So there's Affinity Gauntlet and Woolsard. As you can see, Woolsard changed it up to 371. So Woolsard's a nice pet to further bug out elevulns. I'll kind of show that off again. Woolsard. So we'll get a new one of 136 to see what Woolsard does here. 147. So basically, it's Earth elevuln will bug out existing elevulns. And so Woolsard's good to use to build a lot of elevuln here. So again, we got 181. So those are some, I guess, revisiting of some basics that's currently in game. They may one day fix Power Gauntlet and Woolsard, but we'll see when that day comes. Now, I bring all that up to then show you. So Omni Elevuln enhances the other elevulns in a purely multiplicative manner. But what happens whenever you have things like dual elevulns and triple elevulns? So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So we're going to have our triple elevuln from Tropo, 142. And then, so we have 110% from fire. So what happens here is the fire elevuln from the Independence Dagger will multiplicatively stack with the shield each time. And then we're going to have a dual fire darkness elevuln here from Silas. So we'll show this real quick. So that's 133.6. So in that case there, you have 105.36 to fire. And then even though the elevuln from Silas includes fire, it doesn't actually average in. Now 1 turn elevulns will actually now average in precisely. But anything more than 1 turn, it will actually oftentimes, like you saw with the water elevuln and the water elevuln pet, it only was adding like around 10%. It wasn't 137 times whatever the spell was giving. But when you have 1-to-1, it will actually stack purely. And I'll show that here with this character here, using Ninja Assassin and Claw Arm. So the Claw Arm is going to do a 1-turn elevuln, 121, and then we're up to 173. So 173 minus the 121 is around 52. So this time I'm going to go ahead and use a different weapon. And then you'll see Ninja Assassin. Oh, it struck ferociously, so we'll do it one more time. So it should be like, I think 150 something, 152, 153. Another Ferocious Strike. Of course, when I'm actually trying to play, that's when that shit needs to happen. All right, 152.67. So the 152.67 plus the 121 point whatever claw arm will actually stack properly. So you should get about that was actually another guess Ferocious Strike. Well, my Ferocious Strike rate is crazy. But you would be able to see, let me do it one more time. You'd be able to see that the stack should be, the math should work properly here. As long as the Ferocious Strike doesn't fucking happen. Let's see. 121.25. And then, it's like the 52 point whatever it was. But the math is perfect. But once you go beyond one turn and you have, say, like beginning at 2 turns, then the stacking starts to degrade itself. So I wanted to show all that to then come back to here. And so I mentioned a better way to Dark Invader. So what I'm going to do here is show off something really quick. All right, so Dark Invader's skill is 2 turns at 192%. As you see right there in the box, it is now down to 1 turn at 192.44%. It is a dual elevuln, so energy and fire. So if there's any other pure energy or pure fire elevulns or omni elevuln, it will purely stack into that 192.44. So what I'm going to do is bring back my pet. And in my previous video, I was using Pride Lord and then either SP Void Skull or Jelly. And Jelly would not get enhanced here except for with Dark Invader's energy side because it's energy jelly. But I was using and then the Tropo Shield is also energy. So what we're getting here let's go to enhance the elevuln here. So we're at 238. And then we also have the 142 from Tropo. And then as you can see, there's a fire elevuln there from Independence Dagger. It's like 5.18% per landed pet and guest hit. So it added up to the 126. So what that means here is we're getting a dual elevuln here, a triple elevuln here, and then we're adding a fire only. And so all of those will stack in a pure stack. They won't average like I showed you with the water elevuln from earlier. Now I'm going to go ahead and pivot from this. Keep in mind that Dark Invader I'll show you one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this guy. Go ahead and dispel this guy. Go ahead and dispel this guy. Let's go ahead and get rid of this guy. Okay. Keep in mind the order of elevuln. Also look at the def loss. Energy is listed first, then fire. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop in the Devil Werepyre and bring out the Wolf Bat Swarm Guest. So they fixed the old elevuln bug that worked the same way as the Power Gauntlet that I showed you, which made this combo insane years ago. So the Werepyre bat swarm is going to go right. There it goes. So it also does def loss. It also does elevuln, but instead of energy listed first, it's fire listed first. And that is important because it will list the elevuln separate from Dark Invader, meaning that no matter how many turns you have, it will list separately. That's important because of 0 turn, it's still there. So what that means is if I have a pet that I want to replenish my resources, or if I'm doing damage, so what will happen here is the bat swarm will go again, and there will be 2 lines of 120, or in this case he guessed ferocious strike, so 141.67. So when the jelly goes, it will actually be twice the elevuln. So that's a pure stack. So if we're just going with, so like in this example, the 141.67 and the 120.83 is a, let's see, what did I say, 141.67. That's equivalent to 173.59 elevuln. So that's 173.59 more damage for jelly on energy attacks, or the same thing if I'm using SP Void Skull. And that's important, especially if I'm using Optico, because the Void Skull will do heightened damage. So basically, if they don't ferocious strike, you have the 120.83. Let's see, 120.83 is equivalent to basically 146%. So now the same thing is applied with Independence Dagger. So now I'm going to have a separate fire elevuln. So as you can see, fire is there, 116%. Must have accidentally taken off the elevuln here. So we're going to have basically the fire from the Independence Dagger that goes to 121%. So essentially what's going to happen is when the Void Skull goes, it's going to have 2 line items listed from the guest, the previous round's fire elevuln from Independence Dagger, and then the continuously building elevuln will be about 110% from the guest. So by the time Void Skull goes, you're talking about, so you're going to have 2 120.83s. You're going to have the Independence Dagger's 121.43. And then you're going to have around 110% from the guest going the second time. So the second round, the Void Skull will be doing 195% damage. So basically, it's canceled off the fact that it's paying half damage to heal. That's important if you're using heal loops, like with Dark Invader. But here's the catch. Because Dark Invaders is listed differently than Werepyre Bat Swarm, they do not average in together. Instead, it's listed separately. And I will demonstrate that here. So that creates a stack that is greater than it should be. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my pet, and my weapon just to show this idea. So as you can see, this bottom 192.44 is from Dark Invader, and it is fire, energy. You also have, so you have the 141.67, the guest, ferocious strike. It is, it's fire, energy, whereas Dark Invaders is energy, fire. As you can see there, there's also two different def losses. One is energy, fire, and the other is fire, energy. So those are basically, you got 17 and 17.3. So that's basically 34 to def loss. So both statuses are doing the same thing. That's important because of zero turn, because of what I showed you a second ago, that the Werepyre bat swarm is having two line items by the time the pet goes. Once you throw in the total package, you end up with some pretty crazy damage. So what I'm going to do here, Dark Invader, bring back Tropo Shield, which will bring into the mix. We're going to do Independence Dagger. Now I could, one of two options. I could use Infinity Gauntlet first and then begin the stack, or I could wait. So let's go ahead and wait and see what happens. So we have the 192, and then we have Tropo, and then we have the 121 from Independence Dagger, and then we have the 120.83 from the Werepyre Bat Swarm. If I use Infinity Gauntlet here, it is going to add to any non-zero round elevulns. If there are multiple elevulns that are 1 round or more, it will actually add to the last one inflicted. So what will happen is I have a 2-turn elevuln, but the monster went, so there's 1 turn left. So that 192 will become 292 to the darkness and fire elevuln. So let's just run with that. Let's say I do Power Gauntlet. We'll call it 292. So, and then we're going to add in the 121.43 that listed at the top from Independence Dagger. So that becomes 354 to fire and energy. And then we're going to have the 120.83 from Werepyre Bat Swarm. That's now up to 428%. However, let's say that I did it at the beginning. So now we're going to take 192 instead times the 121.43. So that becomes 233, and then times the 120.83. So that's 281. So the difference without running Gauntlet second is 281.70. However, if I go ahead and if I added it first, that's going to only be 125%. That's up to 352. So basically, it's like 400 and something versus 300 and something. So basically what you're doing is you're replacing Pride Lord with the Werepyre Bat Swarm and allowing that stack to increase damage, what you'll find is the Werepyre bat swarm's damage is not as bad, and it will actually start to compete with Pride Lords. But what's really going to happen is your pet damage is going to skyrocket even more, making it a worthwhile trade-off, especially considering the def loss. So on my previous model, I would do the Dark Invader round 1 and then not do it round 2. So as you can see, we got 200s from the guest, and then we basically did 1,000 from the pet. But now the Dark Invader's original 2 turn is now at 0 turn. Remember, 0 turn stays. So what we're going to do now is come back with this guy. So now we have another 125 Omni listed, but we're also going to do another Dark Invader, and I want you to see the damage go nuts. And you can actually get the Werepyre bat swarms to be like 1 to 2k if you're running like celerity and stuff like that. So I'm going to finally put this all together. So here, what I'm going to do is actually do this, then this, go ahead and bug it out there, and then do this. So we'll watch my pet basically get most of my SP back, everything actually. And then I'm going to do a ton of damage here. And then if the monster actually had, let's go ahead and do this, a lot more hit points, could still do this twice. But I'm doing this to kind of showcase the damage potential of the guest too. So watch what happens here. So that was actually kind of low, 700 and 600. But basically the total elevuln stack starts to push towards like 1,000 when you do it this way, which really enhances, I think it enhances the player damage when you skip a turn, number one, and then it really enhances the pet damage because of all the 0 turn that's still present. So I wanted to kind of showcase a small change that I think this is maybe the best way to go for using Dark Invader. Instead of Pride Lord, use the Werepyre Bouts from Guest. And why it works, because they actually have the fire and energy backwards on both. So there's no like, there's never going to be any averaging in. It's just always going to be like a pure stack, and it adds up to be super effective.